I sneak over to my neighbor's place late at night to pet their Maine Coon. While I'm petting him, I start cursing out my boss. He docked my pay again. Felix is such a jerk. The cat, who's been eating his canned food, suddenly looks up. Human, don't be angry. My servant is your servant. I didn't get it. Not until the day I came home and found the famously aloof CEO from work wearing an apron, bent over, and furiously mopping my floor. Human, why are you so late today? As soon as I get home, I spot a familiar Maine Coon perched on the neighboring balcony. He's baring his teeth in a show of displeasure, but his big, fluffy tail is held high in delight. I scoop up the long-haired gray cat, who's waiting obediently with his front paws outstretched, and carry him into my apartment like I've done it 100 times. I bury my face in his belly and take a deep, satisfying breath. I'm too lost in getting my cat fixed to even think about answering him. The cat is not pleased. Human, why aren't you answering me? I reluctantly pull my head out of his fluff, spitting out a stray hair. I had to work late, ugh. My horrible boss. I open the can of special food I brought for him and set it down next to the cat, who's now weaving around my legs and meowing. The new boss is so demanding. We went through 18 versions of the proposal and he's still not happy, so the whole team had to stay late. And he's so strict. I was 1 second late, 1 single second, and of course he was the one who saw me. My supervisor chewed me out in front of the entire team for a solid half hour. He even docked my pay. Every single dollar I make is already accounted for. Now my whole budget is ruined. By the time the cat is halfway through his food, I've listed off dozens of my boss's crimes. It's kind of magical. It feels like I can talk to this cat forever. At work, I have to walk on eggshells, so I bottle everything up all day and then dump it all on the cat. He doesn't seem to mind at all. Every now and then, he'll give the back of my hand an understanding lick. Then go right back to his food. I don't understand, but you have my permission to continue. The cat makes me laugh. Petting the cat while cursing out my boss. It's perfect. I feel so much better. The cat is almost done with his food. My throat is getting dry from all the talking. I lick my lips, not quite finished. I get in one last jab at my boss. He docked my pay again. Felix is such a jerk. I rest my chin on my hand and watch him eat, admiring his handsome form. Patiently waiting for him to finish so we can go to bed. The cat looks up at me, puzzled. As if trying to recognize a familiar word. But after a moment, he just lowers his head and goes back to eating. When he's done, he licks his paws and lets out a casual meow. Human, don't be angry. My servant is your servant. Huh? I didn't get it. But I could tell he was trying to comfort me. Wow, really? Thanks, kitty. You're the best. I stroke his soft, long fur and pull the lanky Maine Coon into my arms. He lies down next to me obediently, purring away as I rub his belly. My mind wanders as I pet him. It's late. I should be sleeping. But I can't. I want to talk to the cat. I try to negotiate with him. Kitty, may I request your company for a little chat? He glances at me and reluctantly agrees. Meow. I'm very sleepy. But if there are 2 cans of food tomorrow, then I suppose so. I'm so happy I hug him and give him a bunch of kisses. Having a cat is the best. Kitty, why are you always gone when I wake up in the morning? Human, in the morning, I have to go back and coax my servant to go out hunting. That immediately piques my curiosity. He needs you to coax him before he'll leave? The cat nods gravely. It's a huge pain. My servant is also allergic to my fur, so we can't be together for too long. Oh. My expression turns serious in an instant. If I'm not mistaken, the servant he's talking about must be the guy who lives next door. My neighbors say he's a very solitary man. Keeping a cat even though he's allergic. That's so reckless. But the most important thing is, He's not keeping the cat locked out on the balcony, is he? But the cat seems to really like him. I'm afraid of upsetting the cat, so I ask indirectly, does your servant only let you stay on the balcony? The cat rubs against me, looking puzzled. Of course not. He yawns and continues to explain, my servant only stays in his little room. But in the morning, he insists I rub against him through something before he'll go hunting. He's very hard to please. I can't help but laugh out loud. So the guy next door is the one who shuts himself in a small room, keeping himself separate from the cat. I feel a huge wave of sympathy for this stranger. What a shame. To love cats that much and be allergic to them. I wake up the next morning. As expected, the cat is gone. I'm a little confused. The cat goes back next door almost every morning. Does the guy next door have to work on weekends too? What a grind. Good thing I have Saturdays and Sundays off, hee hee. I eat my breakfast slowly, admiring the little apartment I'm renting. The more I look at it, the more I like it. I've thanked my lucky stars a million times for deciding to stay in this city. Half a month ago, when I first moved into this shabby little place, everything was a mess. The toilet was leaking, the corners of the walls were rotting, and the light bulbs were burnt out. But I didn't have the money to rent anything better. Faced with the choice between giving up and going back home or sticking it out, I chose to stick it out. So I just had to pull myself together and slowly fix everything up. But on the very day I finished getting everything in order, I received a gift. The cat of my dreams, a super handsome Maine Coon. He appeared on the balcony next door. Our eyes met, and he just leaped over from his balcony to mine. The balconies weren't exactly close. It scared the daylights out of me. Before I could even check if he was hurt, he spoke. Human, are you the new servant? I was so exhausted and numb at that point that I just assumed I was hallucinating. I stared at the huge, fluffy cat and said without thinking, no, I've already signed an offer with someone else. I can't be your servant. The cat shook his head regretfully. All right then. In that case, can you brush my fur? I can permit you to be my friend. An offer that good? I lunged forward in a flash and carefully stole the cat from the balcony. He was completely cooperative, resting his soft paw pads on my shoulder with his sharp claws fully retracted. All my exhaustion vanished. He was so considerate. I gave him a long, satisfying brushing. He purred contentedly in return. And generously scheduled another brushing session for the next day. He felt so nice to pet. I was practically drunk on this dream. It took a whole week of this before I finally realized it wasn't just a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. By then, it was too late to be scared of a talking cat. I was just excited to get off work every day so I could see him. The guy next door must be a really great person. I couldn't help but praise him over and over in my head. A man lucky enough to have such a wonderful cat had to be a good person. The weekend flew by. I was listlessly slacking off at my desk, listening to my coworkers gossip. Hey, did you notice? Felix the demon came in late today. Looked like he got into a fight with someone. The vibe was super tense. Felix the demon is the boss I complain about to the cat every day, the CEO of our small-time company, Felix Cole. He's brilliant at his job, but unfortunately, he's also incredibly aloof, quiet, and extremely strict. There's hardly anyone in the company who isn't afraid of him. Who'd be brave enough to argue with him? You weren't here this weekend, but he's been leaving work super early lately. Maybe he had a hot date, hee hee. My mind was elsewhere, so I just gave a non-committal reply, counting the minutes until I could leave. With a little over an hour left in the workday, Felix actually slung a bag over his shoulder and walked right out of the office. It didn't look like he planned on coming back to work overtime. Whoa, why is he leaving so early? Isn't he usually the last one in the entire company to go home? Exactly. This was my chance. I gritted my teeth and asked the coworker next to me for a favor. I'm heading out, something urgent came up. If the supervisor asks, just say I went to the bathroom. I'll dash right back. My apartment was close to the office anyway. If I got caught, I could be back at my desk getting yelled at in a matter of minutes. It's not every day the boss sets an example by leaving early. I had to follow his lead. I hadn't seen the cat all weekend. I was so worried I even went out looking for him a few times. Didn't find a single whisker. I wondered if he was mad at me for coming home so late the other day. Today, I was determined to get home early and wait for him on the balcony. Full of anticipation, I rushed home and threw open my door. I burst inside, shouting at the top of my lungs. Kitty! I was trying to use the sheer volume of my voice to convey how desperately I wanted to see him. But I didn't see the cat. Instead, I heard another loud noise. It came from the hallway between the kitchen and the bathroom. I slowly, stiffly, raised my head. And there was Felix, equally stiff, frozen mid-mopping in an apron. My gaze drifted downward. The CEO, who I'd always seen as aloof and formal, was wearing a ridiculously cute cartoon apron. It had a picture of a handsome Maine Coon on it. Next to the giant cat was a little person. The person was holding up a sign that read, "The Cat Servant." What did I just see? What in the world did I just see? For a second, I felt like the air had frozen solid. Shocking. The aloof CEO leaves work early to secretly moonlight as his employee's cleaning lady. Was this even possible? I started to wonder if I'd eaten some poison mushrooms. It was either a hallucination or I'd walked into the wrong apartment. It had to be one of the two. I slowly closed my eyes, then opened them again. Felix, still frozen in his mopping with an apron pose, had not disappeared. Great. That left only one option. Pretend this isn't my apartment. Afraid of startling the beet red, motionless statue, I started backing away quietly, inching my way out the door. I slammed the door shut. Hard. Then I looked up. The apartment number was correct. Fantastic. It really was my place. Like a total coward, I squatted down right outside my door. I silently prayed that Felix would mysteriously disappear just as mysteriously as he'd appeared. This was terrifying. The high and mighty CEO, whose coats probably cost more than my rent, was holed up in a tiny rental, wearing a cartoon apron and cleaning for someone else. Was playing secret housekeeper some kind of weird kink of his? Oh my God. Was this the price I had to pay for leaving work an hour early? Now I knew this huge secret. Was I going to get fired tomorrow for stepping into the office with my left foot first? I'd finally found a job with good pay, weekends off, and great benefits. I couldn't afford to lose it. A chaotic jumble of thoughts tumbled through my brain. I gritted my teeth, ready to face the music. I was even rehearsing the blood oath I'd have to swear to convince my boss I'd keep my mouth shut. But before I could gingerly open the door to check, the door next to mine opened. The cat appeared, tail held high. He excitedly leaped onto my shoulder and gave my ear an affectionate nuzzle. Human, why aren't you going in? I have a surprise for you. I reflexively put a hand up to steady him so he wouldn't fall. Kitty, are you sure you'd call that a surprise? He was not happy. Human, when I say it's a surprise, it's a surprise. I quickly tried to soothe him. He wouldn't let me pet his head, turning away in a huff and gesturing with his chin for me to open the door. My hands shaking, I opened the door again. Felix was sitting primly on a chair in the living room, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. He looked weirdly well behaved. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least he wasn't wearing that imagination-shattering apron anymore, and he wasn't clutching my frayed mop. Things were already much more normal than a moment ago. Felix seemed to have composed himself, regaining most of his intimidating office aura. Laura, he began, my apologies for the intrusion. The company is preparing a new project related to smart cleaning technology, and as the project lead, I'm conducting market research at employees' residences. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. I was supposed to give you advance notice, but you may have left early and missed it. Your door happened to be unlocked, so I took the liberty of entering. That was my mistake. You can name any compensation you'd like, money is no object. What a long-winded excuse. He was a really good liar. I'd never put this address down on any company forms, and I'd only been renting the place for a short time. How would Felix know where his employees lived? Besides, our company had absolutely nothing to do with smart cleaning. But he sure was quick on his feet. If I hadn't peeked inside just before I left, I might have missed seeing Mr. Cole's face turn beet red with embarrassment a few minutes ago. It was pretty cute, though, hee. Too bad I didn't have the guts to take a picture. My internal monologue was running wild. But on the outside, I didn't dare show a hint of it. I wouldn't dare ask for a single cent of the compensation Felix mentioned. I was just glad he wasn't threatening to fire me. I nodded repeatedly, just wanting to get this over with. Mr. Cole, I completely understand. Cooperating with company business is an employee's duty. There's no need to talk about compensation. After this exchange of pleasantries, we looked at each other, both satisfied. Felix even brushed some non-existent dust off his clothes and elegantly rose to leave. But the cat was furious. He shot out from behind me and started yelling at Felix. All four paws were planted in an aggressive stance, his tail whipping back and forth low to the ground. Meow, 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 meow. I'd never seen the cat this ferocious before. Felix gave an exaggerated shudder, froze mid-stand, and immediately sat back down like a scolded child. The cat still wasn't satisfied and continued to growl at him. Felix fidgeted, then scrambled to his feet, completely losing his earlier composure. He reached out to pet the cat, but the cat dodged him. The cat ignored him and turned to nuzzle me instead. I wanted to give you a surprise, so I had my servant come clean your house every day. But my servant dared to slack off. He wasn't wearing the apron I picked out, and he wasn't even sweeping. I failed to manage my servant properly. I apologize, human. Sniffle. I was so touched. How could he be so sweet? I let out a cry and swept the cat into my arms, giving him a big kiss. You don't have to apologize to me. You're the best. Felix watched me kiss his cat, a hint of grievance in his cold expression. That's when it finally clicked. So the guy next door, the cat servant, was Felix? Oh. My God. The fact that Felix was my next-door neighbor was even more shocking than the whole cat servant thing. The company I worked for wasn't huge, and it hadn't been around for long. But because of our industry and the strength of our product, the profits were actually pretty high. Felix himself was a business powerhouse. There was no way he couldn't afford a better place to live. And this apartment complex I was renting in had no other advantages besides being close to the office. I was here to save money. But what about Felix? The CEO of a company, living in a dump like this. Even with the cat's indirect confirmation, I found it hard to believe. But Felix was a smart man. He quickly saw my confusion. He fumbled to pull the apron out from where he'd hidden it in the sofa cushions, put it back on, and started explaining. I do live next door. I had a bit of a falling out with my family, and I had to hide the cat here to keep them from finding out. He's gotten used to this place now, so we haven't moved. It's also close to the office, which is convenient. I nodded. The reason seemed plausible enough. Felix picked up the mop again and held it out for the cat to sniff. The cat leaned in to inspect it, and after confirming it was up to standard, he gave the mop handle a magnanimous nudge, signaling that Felix could begin his work. Before I could even try to stop him, Felix was expertly mopping the floor. There was a certain flair to his movements. It was the abandon of someone who'd been so thoroughly embarrassed that he'd thrown all concern for his image to the wind. In no time, Felix had cleaned the entire apartment all over again. Only when the whole place was sparkling did he clap his hands in satisfaction and wait for the cat's inspection. After the cat gave his approval, Felix announced his departure. It's time for the cat's dinner. I'll take him home to eat. As for why I was here, your relationship with my cat, and all that, we'll have a formal discussion about it tomorrow. Before leaving, Felix glanced back at me. He added one last warning. My cat is special. He's somehow learned to speak human language. I must ask you to keep this an absolute secret. I'd already seen so many different sides of Felix today. This time, his imposing aura didn't faze me. Instead, his words reminded me of something. Something I'd found strange all along. Felix knew his Maine Coon could speak human language. But from what I'd observed this afternoon, the cat definitely spoke human to me. To Felix, however, he just meowed, only throwing in a few human words to curse him out when he got really angry. Why didn't the cat speak human to Felix? And I had a feeling Felix couldn't understand a word the cat was saying. The cat went home with Felix that afternoon. He was grumbling and griping the whole way, a mix of meows and yowls. That evening, he reappeared right on schedule on the balcony next door. He was particularly excited tonight. After I brought him inside, he held his little head high in pride and struck a dashing pose. Human, what do you think? My servant is pretty useful, isn't he? He was. He was very impressive. After Felix left, I did a full sweep of my apartment, inside and out, just to be safe. And it was so clean. So tidy. He'd even made simple adjustments to the placement of small objects that elevated the whole aesthetic of my apartment by several levels. I was tempted to hire him for regular cleanings. But then I thought about the CEO's hourly rate. Yeah, better not. But the cat seemed to sense my satisfaction. He held his head even higher and pawed at my hand, demanding pets. Human, my servant can also provide catering services. The price is 3 cans of food. Deal. I quickly grabbed 3 cans and set them by the balcony for the cat to take with him when he went home in the morning. An opportunity like this wouldn't come again. Who cares if he's a CEO? As long as the cat was here, Felix would never be the boss in this house. Hee hee. I really did want to taste Felix's cooking. The cat leaned in to sniff the cans and gave a happy little hum. Then he leaned against me, waiting for me to brush his fur. I skillfully worked the small comb, chatting with him as I brushed. I couldn't wait to ask the question I was most curious about. Kitty, where did you meet your servant, and how did you tame him? The cat squinted, answering me between purrs. My servant? Oh, he was sent to me by the great cat god, of course. There's a great cat god? The cat tilted his head as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Of course. The great cat god is very reliable. I was just a kitten, and I was almost hit by a 4-wheeled monster. My servant appeared in a flash and rushed in to save me. My hand paused mid-brush. I never would have guessed that their first meeting was so dramatic. Thank goodness Felix was there. The cat, however, was completely unbothered. He nudged my hand impatiently, telling me to keep brushing. At first, I wasn't sure if he was my servant. But he took me home, and I got a new den, new toys, and new food. Then I was sure. It made a certain kind of sense. I nodded at the cat in agreement. But saving a cat in an emergency was one thing. The tedious, day-to-day work of caring for one was another. I knew perfectly well. Felix couldn't even understand cat language and was allergic to cats. He couldn't be what the cat thought he was. So where did Felix's deep affection for the cat come from? So deep that he would tolerate the cat calling him servant to another person and never correct it. The cat was more perceptive than I thought. He seemed to notice my doubt and tapped my head with a soft paw pad. Human, I'm very good to my servant, too. He was injured before, and he couldn't even see properly. I was the one who stayed with him while he recovered. He depended entirely on my hunting to feed him. I understood in an instant. No wonder. Thinking about the rumors at work of Felix's complicated family background, I sighed silently. Neither of them had it easy. I'm glad they had each other. Before I fell asleep with the cat in my arms, I remembered the question that had bothered me the most. After some thought, I tried to probe delicately. By the way, Kitty, where were you the last couple of days? I missed you. The cat flicked his tail and grumbled, I wanted my servant to come help with chores, but my servant is a blockhead. He never understands what I'm saying. It took me 2 days to make him understand. Then why don't you speak human to your servant? My servant was sent by the great cat god. Of course, I have to speak cat. I blinked, and when it registered, I had to stifle a laugh and nod vigorously. It's only logical. Oh my gosh. Such an adorable reason. I was practically dizzy from the charming twists and turns of the cat's unique mind. The next day, just before closing time, Felix walked over to my desk and knocked on it. Laura, come to my office. I stood up calmly, ignoring the sympathetic glances from my coworkers. Humph. I had the cat on my side now. I wasn't scared of anything. After a few brief words about work, Felix got straight to the point. I asked you here today for 2 main reasons. I'm going to explain why I was at your apartment yesterday, and you're going to explain your relationship with my cat. No problem, Mr. Cole. As you know, my cat has a mind of his own. Over the weekend, he strongly insisted that I go next door and help with the cleaning. I really couldn't refuse him. As for how I got in, the cat brought me your key. That key has been placed back on the table in your living room, and I haven't touched it since. But if you're worried, you can change the locks. Felix gave me a formal bow. The cat doesn't understand the rules of the human world, but I should have known better. Regardless of my motives, it was wrong of me to impulsively agree and enter your home without permission. I apologize to you again. If you wish to take legal action for compensation, I will cooperate fully. If you don't, then I am very grateful for your forgiveness. After Felix's speech, my opinion of him changed drastically. It's true that I was shocked and scared the moment I found someone else in my home. But given that the someone else was Felix, and the scene was just so bizarre, I hadn't felt much real anger. Thinking about it now, I realized I should reflect on my own reaction. I shouldn't have let my guard down just because of our boss-employee relationship and given up on protecting my own rights. Mr. Cole, this has been a lesson for me, too. It's okay. As for my relationship with the cat, I saw him on your balcony, he started talking to me, and we just got to know each other. I'm sorry for petting your cat without permission. Felix nodded. I'm allergic to cats, so there are a lot of things I can't do with him. I'm happy you're spending time with him. Perhaps because Felix's tone was so gentle, I felt a little mischievous. But, you know, the cat said I'm his friend. Not the same as your servant's status, hee. Felix understood my unspoken meaning and smiled. In that case, as the cat's friend, you should come and visit his home. He's been dropping hints about it for a while now. No wonder Felix had picked this time, right before the end of the day, to talk to me. I had thought he was trying to avoid the topic. Turns out, he was waiting for this. But it was exactly what I wanted, too. I was curious to see what the cat was like in his own home. This was my first time inside the cat's own house. Unlike at my place. Here, the cat viewed everything as his personal property. He patrolled the room with his head held high like a miniature tiger surveying his territory. Even his meows had an extra dose of authority. Meow. Meow. After completing his circuit, the cat sauntered back to my side. His voice switched back to the cutesy tone he always used with me. Human, make yourself at home. You are most welcome here. I petted the cat and snuck a glance at Felix. He looked absolutely mesmerized by the cat's little parade, all his usual sharp-witted business persona gone. He just dazedly agreed, the cat is right. The cat was very pleased with Felix's perceptiveness. He magnanimously led me to his den to show it off, even making room for me to sit. My understanding of Felix's extravagance when it came to his cat reached a new level. What the cat called his den was actually 2 bedrooms with the wall knocked down between them. One side held a bed and various pieces of furniture for him to lounge on, while the other was filled with all kinds of cat trees, scratching posts, and other toys. The cat was clearly very satisfied with the arrangements his servant had prepared. He turned and let out a few rewarding meows at Felix, while the cat and I played in his room. Felix, wearing a mask, cleaned up all the loose cat hair around the apartment. Once everything was tidy, he disappeared into the kitchen. At dinner time, he emerged right on cue with a gorgeous meal of 3 dishes and a soup. Wow! Delicious! It was truly delicious. I praised his cooking so much that I forgot the last bit of formality I was holding on to around him. Was Felix really this domestic? He made good money, was responsible, hardworking, and loved to clean, and on top of all that, his housekeeping and cooking skills were top-notch. God! I wanted to marry him. I should talk to the cat about it, ask him to marry his servant off to me. What am I thinking? I tried to conjure up an image of Felix's fierce demeanor at the office to quash my crazy thoughts. But all I could picture was the Felix I'd gotten to know these past few days, his handsome face, his aloof and noble air, all while rolling up his sleeves to clean the house and prepare 3 meals a day. Oh my God! There really was another creature in this world as cute as a cat. His face, his body, his personality, his character. He was completely my type. And he had a super-duper adorable cat. He was too perfect. But I still had one last reservation. I'd heard his family background was a bit complicated, and I didn't know if he had sorted it all out yet. My resolve wavered, and after some back and forth, I decided to just ask Felix directly. The cat was right here in my lap, so even if the question made Felix angry, he wouldn't take it out on me. I tried to phrase my question as politely as possible. Mr. Cole, the cat mentioned you were injured once because of some family matters. Is it okay for him to be by himself during the day? Felix nodded. It's fine now. Things were a bit complicated before, but it's all completely resolved now. If it weren't, I wouldn't have let him stay here alone. It seemed my timing was pretty good. If this had happened in the past, he might have stopped me before I even got a chance to talk to the cat. He might not have even rented this apartment out to me. As I was debating what to do next, I heard Felix mutter under his breath, a little sourly, "The cat even told you that." Oh, that little pout. It was so cute. Almost as cute as the cat. In that instant, my hesitation vanished. Go for it. Just then, Felix spoke up first. By the way, when we're not at the office, you can just call me by my name. He probably meant for me not to be so formal because of his position. But he didn't know. It wasn't that I wasn't being formal. My motives were no longer pure. I seized the opportunity. Okay, Felix. Using a more intimate name was the first step to getting closer. Felix looked a little surprised. But he nodded in acceptance. Excellent. Looks like I have a chance. Before I made my move, I asked for the cat's opinion first. Kitty, I want to date Felix. Do you think that's a good idea? I watched him nervously. But the cat didn't understand. He tilted his little head. Human, what is dating? Why do you have to do it with my servant? It's when 2 people are always together. They like each other, they take care of each other, and they do lots of happy things together. As for why your servant? I like him. I think he's a great person. I wasn't sure how to explain it to a cat, so I just tried my best to describe the kind of relationship I imagined. The cat nodded in agreement. I also think my servant is great. I actually like him a lot, too. I smiled. The cat continued his questioning. But will you still be with me? I thought for a moment. Yes. I would be even if I wasn't dating Felix. The cat agreed readily. Then I think it's okay, meow. Yes. With my goal set, all that was left was execution. But I'd never been in a relationship before. This was also my first time pursuing someone. I was nervous, but I really didn't want to miss my chance with Felix. So I came up with a bunch of plans and asked the cat about them one by one. We discussed which ones were better. The cat was incredibly patient, listening to me explain the pros and cons of every plan. He didn't really understand the plans themselves. But he understood what like meant. He patted my hand and announced with great authority. "Don't worry, human. I like you, so my servant will like you too." And it turned out to be true. With the cat's help and my own efforts. The way Felix looked at me started to more and more closely resemble the way I looked at him. With the cat as our bond, we had a natural foundation of trust. And since we had a common interest, developing feelings for each other was a matter of course. Before long, Felix confessed his feelings to me. We officially started dating. It was only after we started dating that I discovered Felix was even more deserving of the title perfect partner than I had imagined. Perhaps because of his deep love for the cat and his family background, parts of his personality were also very cat-like. He was even like one of those clingy, high-needs cats. And it just so happened that I could perfectly satisfy his need for affection and emotional support. I fell more and more in love with him. And he loved me very, very much. We both worked hard at our respective jobs during the week. But on weekends, or whenever we both had free time, we would tacitly agree to pause and set aside time for each other. At my urging, Felix would cut back on his overwhelming workload and occasionally just enjoy life at home. The cat would lie on my lap, nudging my hand every so often as a reminder to pet him, a constant purr rumbling in his throat. I would cuddle the cat, with the man I loved, my soulmate, cuddling me. Felix, usually in a suit and tie, would be wearing soft loungewear and would plant a contented kiss on my forehead. He'd watch intently as I played with the cat in my lap, brushing his fur and burying my face in his belly. When I was tired of playing and the cat was getting sleepy, he would quietly get up and go to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Before long, the cat would be the first to catch a scent, his fluffy tail held high as he trotted quickly to the dining table. Felix's voice would soon follow. "Laura, dinner's ready. Coming." At the dinner table, Felix and I would smile at each other, then we'd both look at the cat purring happily beside the table as he ate his own little meal. Who's living the dream? We are.